It's book review time. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. On the channel we post writing tips, unboxings, book hauls, book reviews and the occasional vlog. And today I have another book review for you, and it is Linden Falls by Joshua Hershey. I was sent this book by Joshua, so thank you so much. He sent me this to review and I was super excited about it because it is obviously a fantasy. I've been needing an epic fantasy kind of read. So we read this one and here's my review of it. I will read you guys the blurb first. I will then do a spoiler-free review. Spoiler alert, then go into some spoilers. I'll give you a time to skip to so you can avoid those spoilers if you just want to see my overall review at the end after seeing the start. But as always with my book reviews, I'll read you guys the blurb first. Before I get into that, don't forget if you like what you see to subscribe to my channel. Your continued support means a lot, so thank you guys so much. Blurb time. Mabel is a rumoured witch whose kingdom belongs to Levian the serpent. Her people are enslaved in darkness, but everything changes when Mabel discovers a book that transports her to the world of angels and demons. There she wields swords of fire and faces Tannin, a spirit-infested dragon. Mabel sets off to save her people, unaware that she'll find Eva along the way, that mystic lady thrown away in time, and in doing so find herself. Mabel even learns how to break the darkness, but Levian has different plans. Mabel wants to set her people free, make peace with her past, and start a new life. She wants to be a fighter and protector of the one she loves. When life becomes a curse, can Mabel end the darkness before destroying herself? Ew! So that is the blurb. I will jump into the review. As I said before, I'll do spoiler-free first, give you a spoiler alert, and then go into my overall reviews at the end. First of all, when this book first started, I did find it quite jarring. I think it's because it does jump almost immediately into the action, which is fine, but you barely know the characters when this action jumps into, and I found that the two characters Mabel is friends with at the beginning, they never come back. For me, they just weren't needed, because apart from a couple of thoughts, which she soon forgets about, there's nothing about them later on, so they just don't seem necessary to the book. I also find, so we know Mabel is called Mabel, but quite often she's referred to as the girl, which, considering she's 17, is, I found, quite condescending, because she's not a girl, she's not the girl, she's Mabel, and on the back it says that she's a presumed witch. I don't see anything really witchy, thoughts about her to begin with. So the girl just seems like cutting under that for some reason to me. So on page 25, I have a quote for you. A dull ache squeezed her heart, the one that plagued her every time she thought of her parents, when she realised that she was poor and would never have a wedding, a father to give her away. I do have an issue with this quote, alright? So Mabel is 17. We know that her parents died. She was brought up by her grandma, who is dead now. She's just been taken up to the angels. I find this really weird that her thought process would go to, understandably, dead parents, I suppose, but her own life is in question right now. But why would that go to being poor and then not having a wedding and not having a dad to give her away? Because a dad giving you away is not a necessary thing for a wedding now. I personally am definitely not going to do that, and I know that is down to personal opinion, and that for some people who are engaged and who are going to get married, then not having that could be a big deal. But this is a 17-year-old girl who's not in a relationship, so why would she care about being given away down an aisle when she's not engaged, she's not at an aisle, she's in surrounded by angels? Why would that be what she cares about? So I did question, is this what the author thinks 17-year-old girls think about? Because I know I definitely didn't. But it is sort of stereotyping women for me. It's this idea that all we apparently think about is marriage and dads giving... We're not a property to be given away. He tell touched a nerve a little bit. It did. I got a wee bit annoyed. But after that quote, I did get excited because until that point, the plot kind of seemed a little meandering / too fast. I felt almost seasick with how much we were jumping around. But at this point, Mabel is told to choose a door. So for me, that felt like the story is definitely beginning, and now we know what Mabel's got to do. This is great. We're going to get into the story. She's taking control. She's chosen which door. Let's go for it. When she's choosing the door, it's obviously a religious question that's given. So I'm not religious. I was christened, decided against it as I got older. And the 7 angels, like 7 disciples, there's a magic number of 7, so I'm presuming this is a religious reference. But going through the doors is quite a religious thought process, which would make sense if Mabel had not just literally stolen from a temple. She doesn't come across as a religious person if she's stealing belongings from temples. Page 102 to 109. I actually liked these pages. It cleaned up some of the questions, which was great. Though it did feel like it was telling to a certain extent because it was all told through dialogue rather than shown. But being told through character dialogue is better than just the narrator talking to you. I don't know why all of the angels and all of the fighters have to be men. That's questionable. We're beyond the point now. So if you're not new to my channel, you'll know that when I review fantasy in particular or science fiction, if it's pre-2010, I mention the non-inclusivity of the book or the fact that there's only one woman, everyone else is male, or everyone's white, or just all of that. If it's pre-2010, I honestly expect it, so I mention it. They might lose a mark, but I don't generally take away too many marks for books that do this. However, this book came out in 2022, so there's no excuse for all of the fighters and all of the angels to just all be men. They can be mixed now. The army is. Page 112. And you, no family, he said. A bit of a plot problem here because Merciless should already know this because she's already told them her story on page 102 and 103. So just a little bit of a plot error there. He wouldn't need to ask her this. He already knows her parents are dead. There was concern in his face, which made him all the more handsome. His eyes didn't feast upon her like those of other men who had noticed her in the streets the older she became, whose looks were dark and bestial and made her feel ashamed. I'm sorry, she's 17. No! Made her feel ashamed. I have underlined this. I'm really sorry, but you should never feel ashamed about people staring at you. The men staring at you, especially a 17-year-old girl, they should be in prison. Or at least kicked in the bollocks and told to move on. Sorry, I have very strong opinions on this. But no way should any woman or any person ever feel ashamed if they're being stared at because of their appearance. The people staring need to avert their eyes. No, you should never feel ashamed. I understand feeling like someone's not looking at you in a bestial way, which is sweet, but the shame section should just not be in there. That end of the sentence should just be cut. And as a woman, I don't feel ashamed when people stare at me in gross ways. I just want to hurt them. The other thing I found very strange is Mabel is attracted to Merciless, and she's very open about this. She is 17 and he is 30, and not only that, he is married and has children. Now, I'm not religious, but I'm pretty damn sure that trying to flirt with someone who's married is a big no-no, considering it is in general society to begin with. Not to mention a 30-year-old and a 17-year-old is grooming, and that's just... I talk about age gaps in my tropes that I hate and tropes that I love videos. Those links are above me now. And for me, that age gap is too much. Just, she's a child still. She's a teenager. He's a grown adult with a wife and children. No, just make a teenager for her to fancy. If she needs to fancy someone, make a teenager. Page 113. Then look at her. She's 17, gorgeous and alone. What do you think's going to happen to her? She's clearly a target. So this is Merciless teaching Mabel how to fight, and then Eva tells him to stop. A, she needs to learn how to fight, so I'm relieved she's learning to fight. So why is Eva stopping her? It seems a bit odd. But B, 17, gorgeous. No. Just no. A, again, the age gap. She's 17. Inappropriate wording. But 2, women shouldn't have to learn to fight because they're beautiful. This is demonizing someone being beautiful, which is something that's really wrong in society because women are told to be beautiful. but also you can't be beautiful because people will rape you, which is sick and wrong. But you have to I mean, it's the Barbie movie all over again. It's full of contradictions of what women should be, and I'm really sorry, but this book is really following those contradictions and the social stereotypes. I don't like that. Page 121. The girl had been afraid the day would come when she would find a man who would enter her dreams. Mabel had believed that she was destined to eke out a living as a maid, would never marry into a respected family, and was expendable. As much as she had convinced herself that she would never meet her prince, she had found Merciless, and there he was. He had eyes for his wife and no other, and could never be tempted. Unlike the boys Mabel had known at school, who had wanted something from her, he had only given. He was strong and never intimidated, confident but not arrogant. Shame and anger simmered in her chest. Mabel realizing she could never be with someone like him. She felt used, having slept with someone else in her quest for love. She's 17. She's allowed to have sex. I mean, I don't know what the age is in America, which is where the author is from, but in England it's legal at 16. You can go on the contraceptive pill at 16. He's 30. It's shaming someone for having sex, which is wrong. There's no shame in having sex. If you're super religious and you're part of the people who don't want to before marriage, that is totally fine. I am not saying that you have to have sex before marriage or anything like that. But you shouldn't shame someone for having sex before marriage. It's their choice. It's their body. So that feels like it's shaming. And it's Mabel being ashamed of herself for doing something natural. She's ashamed of being pretty. She's ashamed of having sex. No! And also, if she was poor and living on the streets, I highly doubt marrying into a respectable family is going to be the top of her priority. I'm pretty sure food was the top of her priority and getting enough to get by, not marriage. The one thing I did like is on page 122 to 123, the person that she's telling that last quote to, he actually says that love is not the body. So at least that's good. At least he's telling her not to be ashamed about having sex. But the fact that someone feels shame in 2022 for having sex, it shouldn't need explained in a book that it's okay to have sex. And also, don't pursue married people. Or wish a wife dead. No, one of my triggers is cheating, and you can tell it got to me. You can really tell. So after page 123, apart from the insta-love, which was Merciless, and some wishing the wife was dead comments, the story continues on and flows a little better. After 123, I got far more into the book. Before that, I honestly did struggle, but after that, the action picked up. She was fighting, she was listened to, so it got better. Also, the insta-love with Mabel and Merciless really just died out. I don't know why it was mentioned to begin with in this book, because it never goes anywhere. It never comes to fruition. It doesn't come near fruition. It just disappears and Mabel moves on with her life. So I don't know why it had to be mentioned so much, because that was some of the biggest issues I had. The biggest issues I had with the beginning of this book was what I felt was misrepresentation of a 17-year-old woman. Also the age gap, the insta-love, which I'm not a fan of insta-love to begin with. But those all were not needed. If those weren't there, we could just have an action-packed fantasy epic without those problems. So overall, for me, there was a lot of telling. There was quite a lot of filler words which could have been gotten rid of. Characters were mentioned and talked about a lot and then never returned. It did have a plot and a moving structure, but it didn't grip me as much as it should. But as I said, that might be because pre-page 123, I was really struggling. After that, it got a bit better. But I think because it's not the biggest book, and because it is split between so many different points of view, it really slowed the pace for me. If it just stuck with Mabel and got with the story, might not have felt quite so slow. We spend a lot of time with the serpent. I don't necessarily think it was necessary. It did feel like it pushed purity in this book, which, as I said, if you are waiting for marriage and all of that, that is your choice and I'm very happy for you. But it's not something necessarily that I would choose to read or push. This felt like it was shaming you if you weren't doing that, which is not okay for me. In good news though, I did feel like the author showed promise. This does feel like a debut novel. It feels like there are things that can be taken from this book, brought into a new book, and learned from. So for me, it was a 2 out of 10 read. It just wasn't for me. It should have been. It's an epic fantasy. I was so excited to read this. Honestly, this should have been right my cup of tea. I'm into Angels and Demons. Good Omens, I love. So it's not that I'm against Angels and Demons. I'm not against reading religious books or anything like that. But for me, it just didn't hit right. There was too many things which honestly made me angry to give it more stars. However, if you are religious, I would like to know, as a religious person, if you've read this, did it hit different for you? Please comment down below. Because is it just because I'm triggered by these things? Because it could well just be that I'm triggered. And I do apologize if that's the case. But so do let me know if you have read it and you weren't. Maybe it's just me. But for me, some of the representation was just not there. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to this channel because I see as soon as I upload, click that little bell down below. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook and Tumblr. I post my bookish pictures as well as my writing tips and unboxings on there. And thanks for watching guys. Bye!